closed her and slipped it into her bag. The mathematics lesson had ended and students around her were already moving toward the door. She took her time packing up. There was no rush. She had nowhere important to be. Around her, alien students chattered in dozens of languages. Some spoke in clicks and whistles. Others used the common galactic language that everyone learned. Understood most of it now after 8 months on Prime. The garden world was beautiful, peaceful, and completely different from Earth. "Are you coming to the Commons?" Lyra stood by her desk. The girl had blue skin and large eyes that seemed to see everything. She was only real friend at Academy. "Not today," said. "I have some reading to catch up on." Lyra's face showed concern. "You always say that. You should spend more time with other students." Smiled. It was easier than explaining. The other students were nice enough, but they didn't understand her. They came from peaceful worlds where danger was rare. They had never seen a thunderstorm or felt an earthquake. They thought Earth was a scary place full of monsters. They weren't entirely wrong. "Maybe tomorrow," said. Lyra sighed but nodded. "Okay, see you at dinner." "Sure." Watched her friend leave, then shouldered her bag and walked out of the classroom. Instructor nodded to her as she passed. The elderly teacher had kind eyes and always worried about isolation, but preferred being alone. It was simpler that way. The academy grounds spread out before her like something from a dream. Bioluminescent plants glowed softly in the afternoon light. Crystal fountains bubbled with water that sparkled like diamonds. Students of a dozen species walked the paths, laughing and talking. Some flew, others slithered or hopped. The galaxy was full of strange and wonderful beings. Walked toward the eastern gardens. It was the long way back to her dorm, but she liked the quiet there. Fewer students used that path. The gardens were older, wilder, with tall trees and thick shrubs that hadn't been trimmed in years. She touched the pendant around her neck as she walked. It was just a simple crystal her father had given her before she left Earth. "Remember where you come from," he had told her. "Remember what you're made of." Remembered, every day she remembered. The eastern gardens were quiet, too quiet. Footsteps slowed. Usually she could hear the hum of security drones patrolling the grounds. Today she heard nothing. The air felt wrong somehow, like the pressure before a storm. Her hand tightened on her bag strap. On Earth, when something felt wrong, you paid attention. Animals had instincts for danger. Humans were animals too, even if they sometimes forgot it. Kept walking, but her eyes scanned the garden around her. The path ahead curved between large ornamental rocks and thick bushes. Perfect places to hide. Perfect places for an ambush. She was 50 meters from the main path when they appeared. 3 figures stepped out from behind the rocks. They were a reptilian species known across the galaxy. They were hunters and trackers, skilled at capturing prey. They wore dark clothing and carried weapons at their belts. The leader was tall and muscular, with scales that gleamed like oil. He smiled, showing rows of needle-sharp teeth. "Human girl," he said in broken galactic common. "You come with us, no trouble, yes." Stopped walking. Her mind went very calm and very clear. This was what her father called combat awareness. Time seemed to slow down. She saw everything with perfect clarity. 3. The leader was 2 meters tall and probably weighed 90 kilos. The 2 flanking him were slightly smaller but still dangerous. All 3 carried neural stunners, weapons designed to paralyze prey without killing them. Illegal on most worlds, but effective. They were spreading out, trying to surround her. Classic hunting formation. They had done this before. Set her bag down carefully. "What do you want?" The leader laughed. "You know what? Humans are rare. Humans from even more rare. Collectors pay much money for rare specimens." "Specimens," repeated. Her voice was flat. "Yes, you come now. We not hurt you if you cooperate." The 2 other moved to flank her. One pulled out his stunner. Watched them with the same calm attention she gave to everything else. She had been on Prime for 8 months. 8 months in low gravity. The planet's gravity was only 60% of Earth's. Every day she had walked these grounds feeling light as air. Every movement took less effort. Every step was easier. But her muscles remembered Earth. Her bones remembered Earth. Her entire body was built for a world where gravity crushed down with relentless force. "Do you know what Earth's gravity is compared to here?" asked. The leader looked confused. "What?" "Earth's gravity," said. "It's 1.7 times stronger than Prime." The leader's smile faded slightly. He didn't understand why she was telling him this. Did some quick math in her head. She weighed 55 kilos on Earth. Here, she weighed 32. But her muscles were still designed to move 55 kilos through Earth's crushing gravity. Here, moving her body took almost no effort at all. It was like wearing weighted training clothes for 8 months and then taking them off. Last chance, the leader said. He was getting impatient. You come or we stun you and carry you. Thought about the academy behind her. She thought about Lyra, an instructor, and all the other students who thought humans were weak and fragile. She thought about the reputation her species was building in the galaxy. Peaceful, cooperative, harmless. She thought about 3 hunters who believed that same lie. No, said. The leader's smile disappeared completely. Then we do it hard way. He reached for her, his scaled hand moving fast. To him, it probably seemed like a quick grab. 2 who had dodged bullies on Earth and sparred with her older brothers, it moved in slow motion. She stepped inside his reach. Her fist came up in a tight arc, using her legs and hips for power like her father had taught her. Like every human learned growing up unaware, being weak meant being prey. Her knuckles connected with the leader's chest plate. The chitin shell cracked with a sound like breaking ice. The impact sent shockwaves up his arm, but Earth-strengthened bones held firm. The leader flew backward, actually flew, lifted off his feet by the force of the blow. He crashed into a crystal fountain 3 meters away. The fountain cracked, water sprayed everywhere, that didn't get up. The other 2 hunters stared. Their brains couldn't process what they had just seen. The small human girl had just punched their leader hard enough to send him flying through the air. Turned to face them, her expression was calm, her breathing was steady. She had barely used any effort at all. Who else? She asked quietly. The second hunter raised his stunner with shaking hands. Was already moving, crossing the distance between them in 3 explosive strides. On Earth, she could run 100 meters in 14 seconds. Here, in low gravity, she moved like lightning. She grabbed his wrist and twisted. Bones snapped. The hunter screamed, took the stunner from his hand and threw it into the bushes. Then she grabbed his shoulder and his leg and simply lifted him off the ground. She threw him into the same fountain where his leader lay. More crystal cracked, more water sprayed. The hunter tried to get up, slipped, and fell again. The third hunter was already running. He made it 5 meters before caught him. She grabbed the back of his clothing and yanked him off his feet. He fell hard on the stone path. Knelt on his back, pressing him down with one knee. She leaned close to his head. The third hunter's voice shook as he spoke. Kept her knee pressed against his back, not hard enough to break anything, but hard enough to keep him pinned. He couldn't move even if he wanted to. We are freelance, he gasped. No big organization, just us 3. We watch you for 3 weeks, learn your schedule, find when you are alone. Your ship said, where is it? Northern canyons, hidden in the rocks. No one knows we are here. Communication. Nothing sent yet. We were going to capture you first, then contact buyers. His mind worked through the implications. 3 freelance hunters, no backup. No one expecting them to report in. Their ship hidden away from any regular patrols. It was almost too convenient. She looked at the other 2 hunters. The leader was groaning, trying to sit up in the broken fountain. The second one clutched his broken wrist and whimpered. All 3 were injured but alive. All 3 had seen what she could do. This was a problem. Stood up slowly. The third hunter immediately tried to scramble away, grabbed his collar and hauled him back with one hand. On Earth, lifting 40 kilos was hard work. Here, it felt like picking up a pillow. Stay, she said simply. The hunter stayed. Walked over to the leader. He looked up at her with fear in his eyes. Good. He should be afraid. He had tried to kidnap her, to sell her like property. She felt no sympathy for him. You made a mistake, said. You thought humans were easy prey. The leader coughed. Green blood dripped from his mouth. You are monster. Almost laughed. No, I'm just human. We come from Earth. Do you know about Earth? The leader said nothing. Earth has 120 active volcanoes, continued. Earthquakes that destroy entire cities, hurricanes that flatten buildings, tornadoes that rip through towns. We have animals that can kill us in seconds, snakes with venom that stops your heart, spiders that make your flesh rot, bears that weigh 400 kilos and can run faster than we can. She crouched down next to him. We learned to survive all of that. We learned to hunt animals bigger and stronger than us. We learned to work together, to use tools, to think and plan. We became the top predator on our world, and now you think you can hunt us." The leader's eyes were wide. He was beginning to understand. "You picked the wrong prey," said quietly. She stood and looked at the three hunters. Her problem had become clear. She couldn't let them go. They would try again, or they would tell others about her. Word would spread that a human girl could fight like this. Questions would be asked. Investigations would start. Thought about the academy, about Lyra's friendship, about the carefully built reputation of humans as peaceful, cooperative members of galactic society, about the exchange program that had given her this opportunity to study among the stars. If people knew what she had done, what she could do, everything would change. Humans would be seen as dangerous, violent, a threat. The exchange program would end. Other humans would lose opportunities because of her. She couldn't let that happen. Pulled out the leaders from his belt. She accessed his files quickly, scanning through them. What she saw made her blood run cold. Lists of names, students from different worlds, locations, dates, prices paid. There were 17 entries marked as delivered, 17 children stolen from their families and sold to collectors. His hands shook with anger. These weren't just hunters, they were slavers. They had done this before again and again. They would keep doing it until someone stopped them. She looked at the three with new eyes. They weren't just a threat to her, they were a threat to everyone. Made her decision. She searched all three hunters thoroughly. They had more equipment than she expected. Neural stunners, restraint cuffs, tranquilizer darts, communication devices, everything a professional kidnapper needed. She took it all. Using their own restraints, bound each hunter's hands and feet. She gagged them with torn strips from their clothing. They struggled weakly, but they were no match for her strength. Even injured, she was stronger than they were healthy. The leader glared at her with hatred, ignored him. Hatred didn't matter, only results mattered. She dragged all three hunters behind the large ornamental rocks, out of sight from the main path. It took several trips. Each weighed between 60 and 90 kilos, but in slow gravity could manage. Her earth-drained muscles made the work possible, if exhausting. Checked the time. 20 minutes had passed since the ambush started. The gardens were still quiet. No one had come this way, but she couldn't count on that lasting. She accessed the hunter's ship remotely using the leader's codes. The ship's computer system was basic but functional, had always been good with technology. Growing up on Earth meant learning to fix things yourself. The skills translated well to alien systems. The ship responded to her commands. She studied its location in the northern canyons, memorizing the coordinates. Then she looked up information about the canyons themselves, using the Academy's database. The northern canyons were geothermal zones. Active vents released superheated gas from deep underground. Occasional lava flows resurfaced old rock. Ships had been lost there before, caught by sudden thermal explosions. It was a dangerous area, which was exactly why the hunters had hidden their ship there. It was also perfect for what needed. She worked quickly now. Time was running out. She found a maintenance hovercart in a nearby storage shed. The shed was unlocked, meant for gardening staff. Loaded the three bound hunters onto the cart, covering them with empty soil bags. From a distance, it looked like she was hauling garden waste. Up close, anyone would see the truth. Didn't plan to get close to anyone. She piloted the cart along maintenance roads that circled the academy grounds. These paths were meant for staff only, rarely used by students. Had explored them during her first weeks on Prime, when she was still learning the layout. The sun was setting. Long shadows stretched across the landscape. Drove carefully, keeping to the speed limit, acting like she belonged. Confidence was everything. If you acted like you had permission, people rarely questioned you. She reached the northern road without incident. The canyons loomed ahead, dark and forbidding. Could see the glow of thermal vents in the distance, orange and red against the twilight sky. The hunter's ship was hidden in a narrow canyon, tucked under an overhang. It was a small cargo vessel, old and battered, perfect for criminals who didn't want attention. Parked the cart and dragged the hunters aboard the ship one by one. They were awake now, their eyes wide with fear. They knew something bad was about to happen, they just didn't know what. Didn't explain. She secured them to the cargo hold's wall restraints, making sure they couldn't escape. Then she went to the cockpit and started studying the controls. Flying a spaceship wasn't like the simulations she had done on Earth. The controls were different, the responses unfamiliar. But the basic principles were the same: thrust, navigation, stabilization. She had studied this in her academy classes, though she had never flown a real ship before, activated the ship's descent program. The engines rumbled to life. Through the viewport, she could see the thermal vents glowing brighter as the ship moved toward them. Heat readings climbed steadily on the control panel. She didn't look back at the cargo hold. The hunters were screaming through their gags now, thrashing against their restraints. Shut the door between the cockpit and cargo bay. The sounds became muffled. She waited until the ship was committed to its course, until the automated systems had locked in and couldn't be stopped without the override codes she was about to delete. Then she opened the emergency escape pod bay. The escape pod was small, barely large enough for two people, squeezed inside and sealed the hatch. She punched the launch button. The pod shot away from the ship with a burst of compressed air, tumbling through the canyon before stabilizing. Through the pod's tiny window, watched the cargo ship descend deeper into the canyon. The thermal vents were bright now, almost blinding. The ship's hull began to glow from the heat. Then it exploded. The blast was massive, a ball of fire that lit up the entire canyon. Debris scattered in all directions. Secondary explosions followed as fuel tanks ruptured. The sound echoed off canyon walls like thunder. Closed her eyes, it was done. She piloted the escape pod away from the blast zone, flying low to avoid detection. The pod had minimal sensors and no weapons. It was designed purely for survival. That made it perfect for her needs. She landed the pod in a deep ravine 5 kilometers from the academy. The ravine was home to native scavengers, creatures that would strip the pod for valuable materials within days. By the time anyone found it, if they ever did, there would be nothing left to trace. Grabbed the hunters and weapons, then destroyed the pod's navigation computer with a rock. She scattered the pieces across the ravine floor. The scavengers would take care of the rest. The walk back to the academy took 2 hours, stayed off the main roads, following natural paths through the wilderness. She had studied the geography during her survival training classes. Prime was a gentle world, but knowing how to navigate was still important. By the time she reached the academy grounds, it was past midnight. The campus was quiet. Most students were asleep, slipped through shadows, avoiding the few security drones that patrolled at night. She reached her dormitory without being seen. The building's entrance required a student ID card. Used hers, knowing it would leave a timestamp. That was fine. She had left the dorm earlier to return a library book, or at least that was what the records would show. Had spent weeks learning the academy's security systems. Not because she planned to need them, but because understanding your environment was survival 101 on Earth. Now that knowledge paid off. She went straight to the communal showers. At this hour they were empty, stripped off her dirty clothes and stuffed them into the molecular recycler. The machine broke down organic matter into base atoms, which were then repurposed for other uses. Nothing remained of the clothing she had worn during the fight. The hot water felt good against her tired muscles. Scrubbed herself thoroughly, watching dirt and blood swirl down the drain. Her knuckles were bruised from punching the lead hunter's chest plate. Minor cuts covered her hands from dragging the bodies. Nothing serious, nothing that wouldn't heal quickly. She treated the injuries with basic medical gel from her personal kit. The gel was standard issue for all students, used for minor scrapes and bruises. It would hide the evidence of her fight. Dressed in clean clothes and returned to her room. Her roommate had graduated last month and hadn't been replaced yet. She had the space to herself. That was lucky. No one to question where she had been. She sat at her desk and accessed the academy's computer network. This part was delicate. She needed to alter her digital footprint without leaving traces of the alterations. Used the hunters to access the security systems through protocols. Every computer system had weaknesses. Academy security was designed to keep threats out, not to monitor students inside. Finding the had been easy. She deleted footage of herself leaving through the eastern gardens. She deleted footage of her taking the maintenance cart. She deleted everything that showed her movements that evening. Then she created false evidence. She accessed library terminals remotely, making it appear she had been there researching for an assignment. She sent delayed messages to Lyra asking about homework. She even ordered food to her room from the cafeteria, creating a delivery record that showed she had been home all evening. The layers of false evidence painted a picture of a quiet night spent studying. Anyone checking would find exactly what they expected: a dedicated student working hard on her classes. Looked at the hunters. The client list was still there. Names of wealthy collectors who bought stolen children, locations of holding facilities, financial records showing payments for delivered merchandise. This information needed to reach the authorities, but not yet, not until was sure it couldn't be traced back to her. She everything to an encrypted file, using Earth military-grade encryption her father had taught her. Then she wiped it completely, removing all traces of its original data. The physical device went into the molecular recycler, broken down to atoms like her clothing. Examined the weapons she had taken. The neural stunners were illegal on most worlds. Possessing them would raise questions. She couldn't keep them, but destroying them immediately would be wasteful. She disassembled each weapon carefully, separating the components. The power cells went into standard recycling. The electronics were crushed and scattered in different waste bins across campus over the following weeks. The casings were broken down in the molecular recycler. Nothing remained that could connect her to the hunters. By 3 in the morning, her room was clean. All evidence was destroyed. Her digital footprint showed a normal evening of studying. Her physical appearance showed a student ready for bed. She lay down but didn't sleep. Her mind kept replaying the fight, the choice, the execution. She had killed 3 beings tonight. They were criminals, kidnappers, slavers, but they were still living creatures. Thought about the 17 children on that list. Children taken from their families. Children sold like objects. Some might still be alive, trapped in collections or private zoos, treated as exotic pets. She thought about future victims the hunters would have taken if she hadn't stopped them. How many more children would have suffered? Didn't feel guilt exactly, but she felt weight. The weight of responsibility, the weight of choice, the weight of being strong enough to do what needed doing. 3 days passed, attended classes normally. She helped Lyra with mathematics. She participated in group projects. She ate meals in the cafeteria. She acted exactly like herself because the best lies were the ones closest to truth. On the 4th day, the news broke. Was in the Commons with Lyra when the announcement came through. Galactic news services were reporting a tragedy in Prime's northern canyons. A cargo vessel had been destroyed in a geothermal explosion. All hands lost. How terrible, Lyra said, watching the news display. Nodded. Geothermal zones are dangerous. Ships shouldn't go there. The news continued. Investigators had identified the destroyed vessel. It belonged to known criminals, wanted across multiple systems for kidnapping and illegal trafficking. Authorities speculated they were hiding from law enforcement when the accident occurred. Good riddance, another student said. Kidnappers deserve what they get. Several students agreed. There was no sympathy for the dead hunters, only relief that such criminals were gone. Said nothing. She watched the news display and felt nothing at all. That evening, the Academy administration called an assembly. Instructor stood on stage looking grave. He spoke about safety, about the dangers of wilderness, about staying within approved areas. Sat in the back row and listened. Around her, students looked worried or frightened. Some were fascinated by the danger. Others were relieved it hadn't affected them. No one suspected. No one questioned. No one looked at the quiet human girl and wondered if she could have done something impossible. After the assembly, Lyra approached. That news was scary, she said. Natural disasters happen, replied. Earth has taught me to accept that. Lyra studied her friend's face. You seem very calm about it. 2 weeks after the explosion, life at Academy returned to normal. Students forgot about the news. Classes continued. The Eastern Gardens were repaired. Everything went back to the way it was. Kept her routine. Wake up, exercise, attend classes, study, sleep. She was careful not to change anything about her behavior. People noticed changes. Changes raised questions. But she couldn't stop thinking about this contents. 17 children stolen. 17 families destroyed. The hunters were dead, but the people who bought those children were still free. Worked on the problem late at night when she couldn't sleep. She analyzed the client list, cross-referencing names with public records. Some buyers were wealthy collectors. Others were corrupt officials. A few were seemingly respectable merchants with dark secrets. She needed to get this information to authorities, but she couldn't just send it anonymously. Authorities would question where it came from. They might trace it back to the dead hunters. From there, questions would lead to Prime, to the Academy, eventually to her. Needed a method that was completely untraceable. She spent hours researching galactic communication networks, learning how data moved between systems, where the weak points were, how messages could be masked. Earth's internet had taught her the basics. Galactic networks were more advanced but followed similar principles. Finally, she found her solution: a public data node on a trade station 3 systems away. The node was used by thousands of people every day. Messages passing through it were effectively anonymous, lost in the noise of normal traffic. Crafted her data packet carefully. She included the client list, financial records, and locations of holding facilities. She added notes explaining what each piece of evidence meant. She made it clear that children had been stolen and sold. But she left out anything connecting to the hunters themselves. No ship identification, no mention of Prime, no details about the explosion, just the network they had built and the people who funded it. She routed the packet through 17 different nodes across multiple systems. Each node added another layer of anonymity. By the time it reached the Galactic Justice Bureau, there would be no way to trace it back to its source. Sent the packet at 2:47 in the morning. Then she wiped every trace of her activity from the Academy's computers. She destroyed the portable storage device she had used. She went back to bed and slept better than she had in weeks. 3 days later, Galactic news services exploded with headlines. Major kidnapping network exposed. Dozens arrested. Massive investigation launched across multiple systems. Watched the news with Lyra in the Commons. Other students crowded around displays, shocked by the scale of the operation. 17 children stolen, 12 recovered alive, 5 dead. The galaxy mourned the lost and celebrated the saved. "This is wonderful," Lyra said. "Those children can go home." Nodded, she watched footage of families reuniting, parents crying as they held their children, siblings hugging. The joy was overwhelming. 5 couldn't be saved. 5 had died in captivity, thought about the fact that she could have acted sooner if she had known. But she couldn't have known. The hunters had found her by chance. She had reacted to a threat. The rest was consequence. "I wonder who exposed them," another student said. "The news says it was an anonymous tip." "Does it matter?" asked. "The important thing is that the children are safe." "True," the student agreed. Over the following weeks, the investigation grew. More arrests were made. More facilities were discovered. The kidnapping network had been larger than anyone realized. Hundreds of victims across dozens of species. Galactic society was shocked. How could such evil exist unnoticed? Why had no one stopped it sooner? Questions were asked. Reforms were demanded. Security increased at schools and public places. Watched it all from Academy. She attended classes and completed assignments. She helped Lyra with difficult problems. She even joined a zero-gravity sports team where her earth-trained reflexes made her surprisingly good. 2 new human students arrived at the Academy. The exchange program was expanding. Other worlds wanted to learn from Earth students. Help the newcomers adjust, showing them around campus, teaching them about alien customs. Instructor praised her during an assembly. "Represents the best of humanity," he said. "Kind, always willing to help others. She proves that humans can thrive among the stars." Sat in the audience and accepted the praise with a small smile. Around her, students applauded. Lyra beamed with pride for her friend. No one knew the truth, no one suspected. But sometimes, late at night, wondered if Lyra had guessed. The girl was perceptive. She noticed small things. She asked careful questions. She watched with those large, intelligent eyes. One evening, 2 months after the incident, Lyra and sat together in the Academy's observation dome. The transparent ceiling showed 3 moons rising over the horizon. Stars filled the sky like diamonds scattered on black cloth. Lyra said quietly, "Can I ask you something?" "Sure." "That day the news came about the explosion. You seemed very calm, not surprised at all." Kept her expression neutral. "Should I have been surprised? Accidents happen." "Yes, but you're usually more curious. You ask questions, you want to understand things. That day you just accepted it." Looked at her friend. "What are you asking, Lyra?" Lyra was quiet for a long moment. "I noticed your knuckles were bruised that week, small cuts on your hands. You said you scraped them during sports practice. I did scrape them during practice. The sports team didn't start until 2 weeks later. Silence stretched between them, could feel her heart beating faster. This was dangerous. If Lyra had figured it out, if she told anyone, everything would unravel. Lyra said carefully, "What do you think happened?" Lyra looked at the stars. "I think someone very brave did something difficult. I think they saved lives, including maybe mine. I think they made choices that weren't easy, and I think they're carrying a heavy weight alone." His throat felt tight. "If that were true, what would you do?" "I would tell that person they aren't alone, that they have a friend who understands, that some secrets should stay secret but burdens can be shared." Closed her eyes. When she opened them, tears blurred the stars. "I didn't want to kill them, Lyra. I just wanted to go back to my dorm, but they were going to sell me, and they had done it before to others, and they would do it again if I let them go." Lyra took his hand gently. "I know. The children on that list, 17 of them, some dead because I didn't act sooner. You couldn't have known about them before. You reacted to a threat. The rest was chance. I killed 3 people. I'm a murderer." "You're a protector," Lyra said firmly. "You stopped criminals who would have hurt many more. That's not murder, that's justice." Wiped her eyes. "How long have you known?" "Since the day after it happened. I saw you in the Commons. You looked tired, sad, but also relieved, like someone who had done something necessary but painful. I started noticing small things. The missing security footage in the Eastern Gardens, the maintenance cart that was found in the wrong location, the explosion happening exactly when you had no alibi witnesses. It all connected." "Are you going to tell anyone?" Lyra squeezed his hand. "No, never. What you did saved lives, maybe including mine. Those hunters could have taken any student. You stopped them. The galaxy is safer because of you." They sat together in silence, watching the moon's rise. Felt lighter than she had in months. The burden was still there, but it wasn't crushing anymore. Someone knew, someone understood, someone accepted her anyway. "Thank you," whispered. "Thank you," Lyra replied, "for being brave enough to do what needed doing." The semester continued, and Lyra grew closer. Other students saw them as best friends, always together, always laughing. They didn't know the deeper bond forged in shared secrets. Wrote letters home to Earth. She told her parents about her classes, her friends, the beautiful alien world she was learning to love. She told them she was proud to represent humanity among the stars. She didn't mention the hunters. She never would. Some burdens were hers alone to carry, even if Lyra now helped carry the weight. But late at night, when she couldn't sleep, thought about the 12 children who went home to their families. She thought about the arrests made because of her anonymous tip. She thought about future victims who would never be taken because the network was destroyed. She had killed 3 beings, but she had saved many more. On Earth they had a saying, the ends don't justify the means. But sometimes, thought, the means 6 months passed. Spring came to prime, bringing blooming flowers and warm breezes. The academy grounds filled with color and life. Students prepared for final examinations and graduation ceremonies. Stood at her desk, packing her belongings. Her year at academy was ending. Soon she would return to Earth, taking her memories and secrets with her. "Are you excited to go home?" Lyra sat on the bed, watching her friend pack. "Yes and no," said honestly. "I'll miss this place, miss you. We'll stay in touch. Galactic communication works across light years. It's not the same as being here." Lyra smiled sadly. "No, but we'll make it work." Folded a shirt and placed it in her travel case. 6 months since the incident in the Eastern Gardens. 6 months since 3 hunters disappeared without a trace. The investigation into the kidnapping network had continued, revealing even more victims and criminals. The galaxy was still recovering from the shock. But Academy had moved on. New students arrived. Classes continued. Life went on as it always did. The official story about the explosion in the northern canyons remained unchanged. A criminal vessel destroyed by geothermal activity. An unfortunate accident, nothing suspicious, nothing worth investigating further. Had gotten away with it, completely. Sometimes she still dreamed about that day, about the fight, about the choice, about watching the ship descend into fire. In her dreams, the hunters screamed. They begged for mercy. They asked why. Never answered. Even in dreams, she had no answer that felt right. "You did the right thing," Lyra had told her many times. "You saved lives." Believed that, but believing something was right didn't make it easy to live with. The academy held a graduation ceremony in the main hall. Hundreds of students from dozens of species gathered to receive their certificates. Parents attended via hologram from across the galaxy. Music played. Speeches were given. Instructor called name. She walked across the stage, her steps confident. He shook her hand and presented her certificate. "You've been an exemplary student," said. "A credit to your species and to this academy. I hope you'll consider returning for advanced studies." "Thank you, instructor," said. "I'll think about it." She returned to her seat while other names were called. She watched her fellow students receive their certificates. Some were friends. Others were just faces she recognized. All of them were moving forward with their lives, unaware of the violence that had occurred just meters from where they studied. After the ceremony, parents mingled with students. Parents appeared via hologram, their images projected with crystal clarity. "We're so proud of you, sweetheart," her mother said. Her father studied her face. He was a former soldier trained to read people. "You've grown," he said simply. Met his eyes, he knew. Maybe not the details, but he knew something had changed in her, something fundamental. "Thank you, Dad." He nodded slowly. "Come home safe." The hologram faded, stood in the crowded hall, surrounded by celebration, feeling more alone than ever. But then Lyra was beside her, slipping an arm through hers. "Come on, let's get some food. I heard they're serving Earth desserts in your honor." Laughed chocolate cake. 3 different types. They walked to the cafeteria together. Around them, life continued. Students laughed and celebrated. Teachers congratulated graduates. The future stretched ahead, full of possibility. 2 weeks later, boarded a transport ship bound for Earth. She stood at the viewport, watching Prime shrink into the distance. The beautiful garden world that had been her home for a year. The place where she had learned what she was truly capable of. Lyra had cried when they said goodbye, had cried too. Promises were made to stay in touch, to visit when possible. But both knew the truth. The galaxy was vast. Distances were immense. They might never see each other in person again. Still, the friendship remained. The bond forged in shared secrets. Lyra knew truth and accepted it. That was worth more than distance could diminish. The journey to Earth took 3 weeks. Spent the time reading, exercising, thinking about her future. She would finish her education on Earth. Maybe study engineering or xenobiology. Maybe join the diplomatic corps. The galaxy needed people who understood both human and alien perspectives. When Earth appeared in the viewport, felt her heart swell. The blue and green planet looked beautiful and dangerous and perfect. Home, her, the place that had forged her into what she was. Her parents met her at the spaceport. Her mother hugged her tightly. Her father gripped her shoulder, his expression saying everything he couldn't put into words. "Welcome home. It's good to be back." That night, alone in her childhood bedroom, accessed the galactic news networks. She searched for any mention of Prime, of missing hunters, of unsolved mysteries. Nothing. The story was closed. The hunters were forgotten. But their network's exposure had created changes. Security at educational institutions had increased across the galaxy. New protocols protected exchange students. Background checks for service workers became mandatory. The reforms would save lives. Had done that not through her violence but through her anonymous tip. The information she provided had sparked real change. That mattered. That made the weight bearable. She opened her messages. Several were from Lyra, already sent across the light years. Stories about academy life. Questions about Earth. Simple friendship continuing despite distance. Smiled and began typing a response. Meanwhile, across the galaxy, a different kind of message spread through criminal networks. In shadowy markets and illegal trade stations, word traveled among those who dealt in living cargo. Hunters, slavers, kidnappers. They shared warnings in whispered conversations. "Did you hear about the crew? The ones who disappeared near?" "Yeah, turns out they were hunting a human, a girl. So she killed them, all 3, crushed them and made them vanish." Laughter, disbelief. "A human girl, they're tiny, fragile." "That's what everyone thinks, but humans come from their gravity is almost double normal. Their planet is full of predators. They evolved to fight and survive." "You're saying we should avoid humans?" "I'm saying don't underestimate them. Especially the young ones, especially the females. They look weak, but they're not. They're from Earth. There. The warning spread slowly but steadily. Some dismissed it as rumor. Others took it seriously. A few hunters who had planned to target human students quietly changed their plans. Never knew about these conversations. She went about her life on Earth, finishing school, planning her future. She visited her brothers and sparred with them like she used to. She was stronger now, faster. They noticed but didn't comment. Life moved forward. Seasons changed. Applied to universities and was accepted to several prestigious programs. She chose xenobiology, wanting to study alien life and understand the species she had lived among. 2 years later, the Galactic Youth Integration Program expanded significantly. More humans joined exchange programs across multiple systems. They studied at alien academies, learning and growing and building bridges between species. None of them faced the danger had faced. Whether that was luck or because word had spread among criminals, no one could say. But human students remained safe. Received messages from some of them. Young humans who had heard her name, who knew she had been one of the first exchange students. They asked for advice about alien cultures, about fitting in, about representing humanity. Answered their questions honestly. She told them to be respectful, to learn constantly, to build friendships. She told them Earth had made them strong, but strength should be used wisely. She never mentioned the hunters. That story was hers alone. On her 20th birthday, received a package from Prime. Inside was a crystal pendant from Lyra, along with a note. Happy birthday, my brave friend. Never forget what you are, never forget what you did. The galaxy is better because you are strong enough to act. Come visit when you can. The eastern gardens are beautiful in spring. Wore the pendant every day. It reminded her of choices made and prices paid. It reminded her of the line between protection and violence, between justice and revenge. She was human. She had killed 3 beings and saved many more. She carried that truth every day, along with the knowledge that she would make the same choice again if necessary. Because that was what did. They survived, they protected. They did what needed doing even when it was hard, even when it left scars. The hunters had come after class, thinking they had found easy prey. They learned too late what humanity really was. Strong, dangerous, capable of extraordinary violence when threatened. But also capable of mercy, of friendship, of choosing peace when possible and war only when necessary. Looked at the stars from her window on Earth and thought about Lyra, about instructor, about all the students at Academy who would never know they were protected by a girl who fought back, crushed her enemies, and left no trace. She thought about the 12 children who went home to their families, about the reforms that saved future victims, about the warnings spreading through criminal networks. One fight in a garden, one choice in the darkness, one human showing what her species could do. The galaxy had taken notice, not officially, not publicly, but in the places where predators hunted, in the shadows where evil lurked, word had spread. Humans were not prey, they were, and they would fight back. Smiled and turned from the window. Tomorrow she would start her new semester. She would study alien biology, learn more about the species she hoped to work with. She would continue building bridges between Earth and the stars. But if anyone threatened her, or threatened those she protected, they would learn the same lesson the hunters learned. She was human, she was strong, and she left no trace. Were all you had. Sometimes you made choices in the moment, choices that couldn't be undone, choices that defined who you were. Was 17 years old. She was a human from Earth. She was an exchange student at Academy. She was a friend, a student, a representative of her species. She was also a killer, a protector, someone who crossed lines when necessary. She was all of these things, and she would have to live with that for. Would panicking help? I suppose not, but Lyra's large eyes still held questions she didn't ask. Gave her friend a small smile. Want to study for tomorrow's test? Sure, Lyra said slowly. Let's study. They walked to the library together. Behind them, other students discussed the news, the tragedy, the criminals who died. No one mentioned the quiet human girl who had just gotten away with murder. There was always a first time for everything. Plotted a course deeper into the geothermal zone, where the thermal activity was strongest. She set the engines to overload at maximum depth, programming in a delayed detonation. The ship would descend into a thermal vent and then explode, scattering debris across kilometers. No bodies would be found. No evidence would remain. Just another accident in a dangerous area. Looked back at the cargo hold one last time. The hunters stared at her with terror and understanding. They knew they were going to die. They knew she was going to kill them. "Who hired you?" she asked. Her voice was very quiet and very calm. "Who else knows you're here?" The hunter babbled in fear, telling her everything.